Want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And I am done. Okay, so I just finished up reading The Captain by Will Wight. This is the first book in a brand new sci-fi series of his, The Last Horizon. And I want to give you my unedited thoughts upon finishing this book, which was just right now. Oh, this book rocks. I love this book. 2023 is a good year for me. I found so many books that are in my top 20 or so favorite books, and this book is solidly in that group. It's just so good and mind-blowing to me because of how much it exceeded my expectations. I try not to put these expectations out there that influence my perspective, but they can do that because I love Will Wight. I love Cradle. I shouldn't even say that I love Will Wight. I love Cradle. And that's all I've read of his. He's written other books. He's written sci-fi books before this. But Cradle's just amazing. Cradle has a very special place in my heart. It's for sure a top 10 favorite fantasy series for me, closer to the number 1 spot than the number 10 spot. Is that true? It's probably like 5 or 6, but it's way up there. I love Cradle. And then to hear that Will Wight is making this new series that's sci-fi. Look, I don't love sci-fi. I've read some sci-fi that I love, even recently, but in general, I like fantasy more. And, a new series, it just had me a little worried. This book, to me, is better than any Cradle book. And that's a weird thing for me to say. Because even individually, some of these Cradle books have been all-time top favorite reads for me. But from beginning to end, this book was amazing. And when I say beginning, I mean literally the first sentence that is uttered in this book gets me drawn in and hyped. The first chapter of this book, maybe just like the first 2 chapters, are some of the best couple chapters to start out a series that I've ever read in my entire life. This book is high octane. It does not let off the gas. And sometimes that can be too much. This doesn't ride it too much for me. It rides that almost too much, but in that perfect zone of just going from action sequence to action sequence that doesn't really let the reader take a breath, but not overdone. Now, it seems like what I just said is overdone, but you got to read this to believe it. It's perfectly done. Now, part of the reason that I may love this book, I wouldn't say this is just a sci-fi book, because literally the main character here is a wizard. He's got unexplainable, like a soft magic system where this dude has like a wizard staff and a wizard wand, but a blaster in the other hand. This is a sci fantasy book, and it's just amazing. Everything about this book. I don't want to go into details about what this book's really about, because I think that it ruins so much about, I don't want to even, a lot of times I look at spoilers like, look, I can spoil things up until like the 2nd or 3rd chapter. I don't really want to do that here because the book gets defined here by the end of the 1st or so chapter, and then you really understand what's going here. And it's just so fun to find out what this is about. You don't want to read the blurb on this book. You don't want to get spoiled. Look, if you've read a Will Wight book before and you're kind of bought in, just tune it out. Don't read the back. Just go read this book and get blown away by the concepts that are going to be thrown at you. As I look at this book and I compare it to the first Cradle book, Will Wight has expanded as an author an incredible amount. He's just a way better writer, and it shows. Some of the sequences here, I just have to sit back and just be in awe. Now, I've heard some dissenting opinions on this since, I've been talking to people on my Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord, hit the link down below. I'd love to have you join and talk about all sorts of books, not just this one, but anything you're reading and I'm reading, let's chat. But some people were criticizing some of these moments. There's this one kind of extended training, like schoolish, it's not a school book, but this kind of like this montage of people trying to get accepted into something. I'll leave it there. And it was amazing. I mean, it reminded me of Joe Abercrombie's writing. Joe Abercrombie does this thing sometimes. I believe he's done it twice now. In The First Law, where there'll be a battle sequence and, this character, it'll be following some random character and they'll kill somebody or they'll get killed And then the next perspective for the next page or two will be of that character in the battle until they get killed. And then it switches to the person that killed them. It's a wonderful mechanic. Now, that's not what happens here, but it feels like in that same vein of super unique, super fun. These different characters are getting thrown at you. And unlike Abercrombie, a lot of these characters come up later in the book. And you know, it's beautiful reading this on like a Kindle where this character will pop up and I'm like, I think I read about them before. And just to like search for their name and you'll pop up. And I went back and read their little couple blurb pages about what they had done earlier in the book and went, oh, it's such a fun concept. And I love that Will Wight was able to pull it off here to perfection. The plot here is magnificent. Like I said, it doesn't let up the gas, but it's so intriguing. The world building here, and it's hard, I think, to make a great world building in like a sci-fi setting, especially when there's a lot of space travel, because space is empty and it can get kind of boring. I mean, a lot of the book takes place on a ship. I love ships. I thought I just love ships that sail in the water. Apparently I love spaceships too, especially like magical spaceships. It's awesome. Now, just a little quirk of mine. I'm sure that's not like a big thing in the fantasy community, but man, when I see a ship in a book, I just love it. And I didn't know that apparently this applies to me also. But a lot of this book takes place on this on this ship, but still the world building's amazing. So just plot perfect, world building perfect. The characters, oh man, the characters. Every character has this really unique voice to them. You know, even the bad character here, there is a major antagonist here that is just so amazingly done. Not just the way that this character talks, but who this character is and the interesting concept behind this character. And I can kind of talk about this character a little bit. I don't think it ruins anything. But this character is like, there's this hive of non-thinking, really just like creatures that are the bad force in the universe, or one of the bad forces of the universe. They're like these kind of half flesh, half robotic, mindless drones that just wreak havoc across multiple a huge, vast amount of space. And every now and then, we're talking like thousands of years, they will figure out a way to get a king. And the king is able to actually think straight, control everything. And when a king comes around, it basically means that half of the universe is going to die. Because of how powerful they can be and what they can do. And it's just such a fun concept to me. This just whole idea that every now and then something can just like pull in and make this whole network that's out there activate and be able to work in concert. And this bad force goes from a pest to world ending in a very short amount of time. It's super cool. The good guys in this book are amazingly written, especially one of them, which has this kind of like Captain America type vibe it works so well. I've read many books that have a character that kind of acts Captain America-y. This is the best one. The comedy in this book, it's not a lot of like laugh out loud comedy, but Will Wight's a funny guy. I mean, any author that puts bloopers into the end of the book. Now, there's only one author that does this, Will Wight, but anybody that has the confidence to every book they put out to have a bloopers section that, that doesn't exist. These didn't happen like a movie. Like when a movie has bloopers, like these moments happened. But the way that this dude's mind works is he's constantly thinking of these like, oh, what if these characters were like pulled out of the fourth wall? And they can talk about themselves in the books and just like these comical moments that happen and these key moments of the book, like some really funny aspect in an alternate universe happens. This author's funny. And he busts in this comedy in this book, which keeps the book simultaneously very serious, but very lighthearted, oftentimes simultaneously. And it's a fun feeling to have. The writing quality of the prose here is not the strong suit. But like I said, Will Wight has gotten a lot better over time. And I think that not just the book itself, but the writing quality of this book is the best that I've ever seen from Will Wight. And I would hope that's true for most authors as they grow up over time. They get better as writers. I mean, that's how it works in all crafts, right? You get better over time. But some authors, it doesn't work that way. But it certainly worked here for Will Wight. Just a wonderful author. And I couldn't be more hyped about this series going forward. I can't wait. I cannot wait to find out what happens next in this book, in book number 2. And I'm so thrilled that Will Wight is the one who wrote this, because Will Wight comes out with 2 books a year. And that's crazy. Now, the books aren't incredibly long, but this guy is like, outside of like Brandon Sanderson and Pirate Abba, who writes The Wandering Inn, Will Wight is like one of the titans here in the fantasy industry for how quickly he busts out books. And I know that when it comes, maybe I'm going to get a book. I don't think I'm going to get another one this year, because he still has the last Cradle book to come out, which I'm even more hyped to read now than I was before. But it should be early on next year, but maybe it'll come out faster than that, because the end of the book said next book coming out very soon. Who knows what that means? Will Wight's this dude that I feel like I'm getting really excited over here, but that's how I be right now. I'm so happy. But Will Wight, he doesn't like tell you when a book's going to come out. All of a sudden you'll read him come out with something because he's a self-published author and he does what he wants. He'll be like, hey, look, the next book's coming out in like 3 weeks. Pre-order it here. And it's just super fun to just have, this anti-George R.R. Martin thing where an author's super, just hits you with it randomly with good news instead of bad news. It's super cool. So I know that next year, that the next book in this series, which I think is called The Engineer, he already said what the title is going to be, it's going to be like my #1 most anticipated book of next year already. So I need to catch my breath. I can't say any more positive things about this book. Just know that this is at the top of wonderful fantasy. And I know that I'm probably going to be on that outer edge of people that are excited about this book. I think you're going to hear a lot of people say this book is good. It's like a 4 out of 5. Not as good as Cradle. I don't know what those people are smoking. This book, for me, is the best that has ever come from Will Wight. And it makes me want to go back and read the other Will Wight books. Because what if I'm missing something amazing? If people are talking about this book saying it's good, not great, then what am I going to think about those earlier books? Maybe I'm going to think those are amazing too. So we'll find out. Certainly have some more books to put on my TBR that is never ending at this point. But yeah, I'm hyped. You should be too. Check out this book if you like good books. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for watching this. And as always, happy reading to you. Thank you so much to my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier patrons, Anna, Ben, Brian, CJ, Dawnute, Darren, Jamie, Maria, Michael Sugarman, My Book is Lit, Romeo Mike, Ron Reich, Russell, and Sky.